Hello and welcome to this introductory video to the new UWE Paramedic Science electronic portfolio. Hopefully this video will give you an insight into the new PebblePad portfolio for UWE student paramedics and the areas that the students need your help with. As a team, we felt that it was important to move away from the hard copy portfolios we have used previously for a number of reasons, such as the environmental impact, the security of the documentation, and to hopefully increase the communication and progress monitoring between the student, UWE and the SWAST mentors. The electronic portfolio that the students you are supporting will be using is called PebblePad, and they will be introduced to this as part of their module introduction. As part of this video, we want to give you an overview of areas that the student will need your support in completing. If you have supported a UWE student through any previous editions of the portfolio, then a lot of the terminology and content areas will be familiar to you. The PebblePad portfolio looks like this. It serves as a documentation and upload point for the students, with different sections for them to upload evidence of their progression in this academic year, such as their skills, records of hours, and progress interviews. We recognise that remote access to an electronic portfolio in the pre-hospital environment is challenging, and so alongside the PebblePad portfolio, the student will be using a companion mobile app called Pebble Pocket whilst on clinical shifts, which allows them remote access to important documentation even when they have no signal on their phones. The Pebble Pocket app looks like this. There is no requirement for you to download the app yourself, as the student will have it and will be trained in its use. There are 3 records for use on this app, which the students will need your help in completing. The Elements of Practice record, the Placement Attendance record, and the final record of achievement. Firstly, let's look at the Elements of Practice record. An element of practice is a core competency or skill that the student is required to demonstrate in the practice environment. The skills are all covered in theory and simulation during UWE teaching blocks, but require demonstration in the clinical environments before the student is considered competent at the required level. Each element of practice has an individual and specific required level for the student to meet during this academic year. The 4 levels available are dependent, assisted, minimal supervision, and independent. The levels required for each element of practice are identified in the portfolio and on the Pebble Pocket app, and you can see them in the menu here. To evidence these, the student will need to complete this element of practice record on their Pebble Pocket app for each element of practice that they have achieved. You, as the student's practice educator, can then check and sign if you are happy with the content. The student will add the details at the top, including the date, the assessment comments that provide details regarding the context under which the element of practice was completed, and the assessed level. If you are happy with the details the student has provided, you can confirm this by entering your clinical role and then pressing Add Signature. Please note that you do not need to enter points or hours at the end of the form when signing it off. Just press Continue to sign. Here, you need to enter your name, your SWAST email address, and then sign in the box. The student will then attach the signed template to their portfolio as evidence. Please note that if some elements of practice have not been signed off due to lack of exposure, they can also be evidenced by simulation, questioning, or written work. Next is the placement attendance record. In order for the student to evidence the hours they have worked whilst on placement, they will need you to sign their hours off regularly so that these can be added to their portfolios. Again, we are asking that this is done through the student's Pebble Pocket app. The student will be trained in how to complete this form, but will need you to sign it off. As an overview, on each placement attendance record, the student can record up to 5 shifts. They will also need a new record for each paramedic they work with, so there is no expectation for you to sign off shifts the student has worked with someone else. The student will record details of the dates and hours completed, and then if you are happy with the details the student has provided, you can confirm this by entering your clinical role and then pressing Add Signature. Again, you do not need to enter points or hours at the end of the form when signing it off. Just press Continue to sign. Here you need to enter your name, your SWAST email address, and then sign in the box. Once the form has been signed off, the student will send it to their portfolio and it will automatically be added as evidence of their attendance. The last Pebble Pocket template to look at is the final record of achievement. The decision around summative sign-off for the student is completed by the UWE Paramedic Science team. However, this template assists us in that decision-making process by giving you an opportunity to make a recommendation to the marker of the portfolio regarding the student's competency and proficiency at the required level for this academic year, and to confirm that you and the student are both satisfied that they have met the required standard for the practical elements of this portfolio. This should be signed as part of the student's final record of progress interview and should only be signed when they have achieved 100% of the elements of practice at the required level and the minimum number of hours required. Having this page signed by yourself is a huge achievement for the student and a milestone in their development towards the role of a paramedic. Once the student has achieved the hours and the elements of practice at the required level, and you have agreed that the student has met the requirement for that academic year, the student can fill in their details at the top of this form, including their name, student number, and the total number of hours achieved that year. You can then read the statement on the template, and if you agree, you can confirm this by pressing Add Signature. Again, you do not need to enter points or hours at the end of the form when signing it off, just press Continue to sign. Here you will need to enter your name, your SWAST email address, and then sign in the box. Once the form has been signed off, the student will send it to their portfolio. The next area we need to look at are the record of progress interviews. During the students' placement blocks over this academic year, we would ask that you set time aside to meet with them regularly in order to ensure that the elements of practice are being achieved and to provide every opportunity for discussion and reflection about their progress. There will need to be 3 meetings over the course of the year, and there are Word documents that need to be completed following each one of these meetings. It would be a sensible approach to negotiate meeting dates within the first few days of each placement block. The students will only have 2 emergency ambulance placements in their first year, so we would advise that the introductory record of progress interview be at the beginning of the first emergency ambulance placement block, the midpoint record of progress interview be at the end of the student's first emergency ambulance placement block, and the final record of progress interview be at the end of the student's second and final emergency ambulance placement of the first year. The documents that need to be completed for each of these feedback points will be provided to you by the student, and they can either be completed digitally and sent back to the student, or they can be printed off, completed by hand and then scanned back in. The student will then be expected to upload these to their portfolio. Here you can see an example of the midpoint record of progress interview. In the Content of Professional Discussion section, we would ask that you provide feedback on the student's development, a summary of the student's progress to date, the good areas of the student's practice, and the areas requiring further improvement. In the midpoint and final progress interviews, we would also ask that you use the provider statement bank and indicate 5 statements that most accurately reflect the student's practice. Please also consider completing the provided developmental action plan. This approach to the student's learning is extremely beneficial as it allows you and your student to identify areas of their practice that they need to develop and decide on an appropriate method of achieving these. Please complete all 3 record of progress interviews before the end of the year. It is the student's responsibility to provide the paperwork and to then upload it to their portfolio. If at any point you want to review the student's portfolio progress, you can do this in 2 ways. You can either ask the student to log in whilst you are with them, or you can ask the student to digitally share their portfolio with you so that you can log into it remotely. The student will be instructed on how to share their portfolio with you, and once they have done this, the login information will be sent to your SWAST email address. If you have any problems with logging in, please get in touch with us via the student. When you reach the login page, which will look like this, please select I have a guest account. You can then log in with the details you will have received via email after the student has given you assessor access to their portfolio. You should then see the portfolio that has been shared with you, and the student's name will be next to it. You can click on this to open the student's portfolio. Please feel free to look through the student's portfolio at any time. You can use it as part of your assessment of the student's progress, including viewing their completed OSCE forms. I wanted to take this opportunity to provide some guidance around the decision making for passing or failing the year. If you, as the student's practice educator, are concerned that the student may not achieve the elements of practice, or that they might not meet the required standard for the academic year, then the programme leader and the student's academic personal tutor must be contacted promptly in order to provide support, and the student can provide contact details for them. The earlier you raise concerns to us, the easier it is for us to offer guidance and support. If a student has not passed the practice assessment, then please record this as part of the discussion in the final record of progress interview and pass this on to the student's academic personal tutor. Once again, thank you for your ongoing support and development of both the paramedic programme at UWE as well as the students themselves. Please get in touch with us if there are any questions or concerns regarding this portfolio and student support.